If you have a service-based business, chances are at some point in time you felt like a best kept secret. Maybe you've been passed over. Well, here's a distinction that I find very helpful, and that is to recognize if you're an expert or an authority. And more importantly, how does your community, your potential clients, your peers experience you? Do they see you as an expert, or are they seeing you as an authority? Hey, it's Melanie here. And I want to unpack a distinction that I have found really valuable for my own business, for my marketing. It has helped shift the marketing burden, if you will, from feeling so effortful to feeling more effortless, as a way to say it. And this is the difference between people perceiving you as an expert and an authority. And here's why this is so important. So let's think about what's happening in your ecosystem, in your world, your industry. There's probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people who do something similar. And in the eyes of your potential client, does the marketing sound like you do almost the same thing? Okay, so when you are positioned as an expert, which is valuable, and I'll unpack that a little bit more and tell you the differences. You don't necessarily stand out. So all experts kind of sound the same. And what I see happening is you tend to commoditize yourself. So in a commodity offering, what happens is people start to price shop. They start to look for the best deal. And they're not necessarily buying from a place of, I have to have that person. They're buying from a place of, I need this thing. And what's the best price and like the best way to access it. So they stop choosing you in the brand per se, and they start to choose what they perceive as the best value. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but here's the thing. When there's thousands of people that do something similar to you, it's very easy to get lost in a sea of choices. And I don't want that for you. That gets very frustrating. And if you already don't feel like marketing is your superpower, because let's face it, most of us heart-based business owners would rather someone else do all the marketing, right? Is that you? Give me a little shout out if I'm talking to you here. But when you figure out how to position yourself as an authority, and you can, there becomes only one logical choice. You become a go-to authority, and it shifts the energy of your brand. It shifts the energy of the service you provide. So on today's live, I want to, and if you're listening to this later on the podcast, I want to unpack what these distinctions are and why I have found being positioned as an authority is a very easy and powerful way to distinguish yourself and make you more discoverable. So distinguish yourself from the competition and be more discoverable to awesome opportunities, people who are searching for someone, a guest expert, to talk about what you do, more discoverable to the potential clients who are searching for someone who does what you do. I have had this where I've been looking for a subject matter expert on something and I just can't find anybody. And it's because they're not doing the practices that I teach in my guest expert system. And they're literally like a best kept secret. And let's not do that to you. Okay. So let's draw the distinction between an expert and an authority the way I have experienced this. So an expert, but by the way, being in the expertise level is better than not being an expert, right? So people want, when they're going to invest in something, they want an expert. And the way I think of this is, if you're going to go and get a root canal, you don't want somebody who's fresh out of school, probably. You want somebody who's had some experience. And so an expert has experience, but an authority is the one that everybody's referring and saying, that's the go-to for that problem, that, getting the best root canal with the least amount of pain and the shortest recovery, right? So the person who's trained and has skill is out there, but you're going to want to go to somebody who has expertise, right? Like most of us know that there's value in getting expert, but the authority is the one that's the person that everybody referred. So an expert has training, they have experience, they have demonstrated consistent results, they have competency. The expert is probably somebody who's been doing this for a while, but because they haven't learned how to position themselves as an authority, they are like in a sea of options. And so when someone goes looking for them, they may or may not stand out because they are a commodity and people are shopping around, or they can't see you because your particular area of authority is not standing out to them. Now, when you know how to position yourself as an authority, and there's a few steps involved in that, but I'm going to cover one that I think most people miss. What you've done is you become the person that others connect the dots for. So this is what I mean. When you are an authority, and let's say a friend is having lunch with a peer, and she's saying, oh my gosh, I have hired 3 accountants and none of them are really like the one that I want. Like, I feel like I'm not connecting with them. They're missing stuff on my taxes, right? So they're saying it's not, what they're finding is not working, or I'm looking and I'm not seeing anybody that I can find that will do what I want to do. The authority, the accountant whose position is authority, has done a good job of cultivating their position in the industry and in their community. And so the friend says, oh, well, you got to meet so-and-so because they're the accountant that everybody I know uses. They're the person that, always gets referred for this. They're the person who I see everywhere in that particular subject matter expertise. So what's happening is they are a recognizable brand. And there's several ways to cultivate authority. And the good news is, like, you can do this yourself. Like, you can start this momentum rolling. You don't have to have other people do anything except book you on their shows. Like, that is one of the key pieces that will help. So let me take a piece of my guest expert system and share it with you, because I think this is super relevant. And what I find is, in the 5 steps that I teach, like, this is one that is almost always missed. And that is the momentum that is established when you activate the ICU Everywhere Effect. And this is your responsibility. This is the piece that you can do to kickstart all the momentum, right? And you don't have to have like tons of people in your social media following. You don't have to have a huge list. You don't have to have been in business a super long time. It does help to have a track record and some established consistency as a business owner, but you don't have to. Like, if you've got credibility, you can develop the authority. And the ICU Everywhere Effect is a way, like, every time I have started something new, I tap into this and it literally propels me onto about 50 stages within a 6-month period. And I'm talking about all kinds of stages: podcasts, virtual events, in-person events, right? Because what happens is the ICU Everywhere Effect takes over. And when somebody's putting an event together, or they're looking for a subject matter expert, they start to see your name connected to your topic, where they're looking for inspiration for who to invite to an event. I had a friend reach out to me on social media the other day, and she said, wow, like, your speaking is taking off again. Well, COVID pandemic kind of took the in-person stuff down for a while. But she said, why do you think that is? And I'm like, because I know how to create the authority and build the momentum that gets me invitations. I very rarely pitch myself. I do pitch myself, like, if it's a new stage that I want to target, or like I'm being intentional about speaking at a new event. But I mean, I'm really blessed. Like, I don't have to go out and pitch a lot of podcasts anymore. I have way more than I can keep up with coming into my system anyway. And that's what happens when you really cultivate this ICU Everywhere effect. Now, all 5 of the components I teach in my guest expert system weave together. So if you're listening to this later, I'm lacing my fingers together. When you integrate all the pieces, what happens is they all start to kind of like work together, pieces of the puzzle. But there's one thing that will kickstart all of it, and that is pitching podcasters, online shows, virtual events, whatever it is. You take the ball and start to run with it. The same topic. Now, the topic matters. This is one of the steps that I teach, because the topic has to be magnetic. But when you pitch that same topic and a version of that gets shared over and over and over again, and you are being featured on other people's stages, which means you're borrowing their influence, and you're being featured across the airwaves with a consistent magnetic message and a powerful brand, it activates your authority. Okay. So you can feel like you're a best kept secret, and doing this one thing will start to shift that momentum, so that people are like, wow, I've been seeing you everywhere. I feel like I should get to know you. Oh my gosh, I've been looking for someone who does, consulting on this area, or is a trainer on this subject matter, or has expertise in this particular mindset, right? You would not believe how many people have reached out to me over the years because they saw my talk on being a best kept secret or on money mindset and said, I've been looking for someone to talk about this. Can you come? I get it all the time. As a matter of fact, I just got booked on a podcast and I didn't know why. It was a really interesting podcast. And the person reached out to me and booked me, and then said, I want to talk about your collaboration currency. And I'm like, interesting. He's like, yeah, I've been seeing your talks about that, and it's on your show page, your one sheet online. And I was like, that is so me. So the consistency of messaging is what people tend to respond to and pick up on. Now, I want to tackle 3 obstacles that seem to come up when I teach people this strategy, and they're working the guest expert system and they're ready to get going. And then these 3 common kind of like roadblocks come up. And the first one that comes up all the time, if this is you, let me know, how to find the right podcasts. So there's a couple of different strategies that I teach here. And obviously, if you're in my programs, you're going to get access to a lot of the podcasts who are actively looking for guests. But one of the things that I say works really well is go check out the LinkedIn profile or the Facebook profile or the Twitter profile of somebody that you admire, maybe someone who does something similar. I guarantee you, if they're already working this process, they're showcasing some of the best podcasts that they've been featured on. So, they're looking for similar subjects. That's a really easy way. That's when I first got started. That's what I did. I literally just kind of kept tabs on what some of the exciting podcasts were that were out there. And we kept a whole database of who I was going to pitch to. You can also hire a podcast booker. Now, that is a bigger investment. You don't have to do that. There are really simple ways to get this ball moving without making that investment. But if you don't have the time or the bandwidth, you can put your VA through my program, or you can hire a booker, right? Just got to get started somewhere though. It's really about that. And so here's one little distinction on the right podcasts. Do not speak on podcasts that are not industry aligned, unless you are brand new and you have absolutely zero momentum and it's a good podcast. So I'd rather you be on a good podcast that's not necessarily a hot podcast for your industry than none at all. And this is a good way to start getting some momentum and some practice, but only if you're brand new. And I want to just say to all my friends who have awesome podcasts that are not industry aligned, and I've said, oh, I'm sorry, thank you, but it's not really fit. Just know it's not personal. I love your podcast, but I am very intentional about where I show up and speak, because I want to be in front of the people who can most benefit from what I teach. Okay. So That's a couple tips on finding the right podcast. 2, I'm pitching, but I'm not getting booked. Okay. Well, knowing that I get about 100 to 150 pitches a week, I hear you. I don't accept all of them. And here's why. The topic or the credibility and authority positioning are off. Okay. So honestly, like there's only a couple of podcast pitching companies that I refer, because a majority of the ones that pitch me are not making sure it's audience aligned. And I'll never accept somebody if it's not audience aligned. I mean, maybe Oprah, right? If Oprah's company came and pitched me, which could happen. I can dream, right? But the idea is make sure that topic is really nailed down. So if that's not working for you and you're like, I do have a great topic, there's probably something else going on. Your topic's not magnetic enough. You don't really know how to pitch. You're picking podcasts that are really, really busy. And I have strategies for all of that in Guest Expert System, but I just want you to know, don't give up. Okay. So there are strategies you can do, and podcasters are slammed. So we want to like navigate that and get you some wins so that the momentum starts to kick in. And then the last one that starts to get in the way is I'm on podcasts and I'm doing what you're saying, Melanie, like I really am creating momentum, but I'm not seeing a good ROI. Okay. So this is probably a whole episode in itself, but let's first start with what is ROI, return on investment. If you are at the top of your game and your ROI, your investment you want returned to you is clients, then chances are you have something broken in your golden thread. I call it the golden thread. It's the how you create interest so someone listens and you get booked. You get booked and someone listens. Intrigue so that people listen all the way through, and investment, meaning they're invested in wanting to work with you. And if you're not getting a good ROI of clients and leads, then I guarantee you something's broken there. The second thing I see is you don't understand your lead types. Okay. So I did an episode on this for Amplify Your Success not too long ago. There are 5 types of leads and you have to learn how they buy. I teach this whole thing and strategies on the back end of how to nurture different kind of lead types. Because I guarantee you, if you're doing a good job with your golden thread, you're getting leads, but you've got to make sure that you know how to nurture the different lead types. Not all leads buy the same way. And then we might have to look at adjusting your ROI. Like people get on podcasts for all different reasons. And there is a lot of ROI that you may not even have on your radar right now. There are things that are happening when you do the buzz effect and you're getting on everybody's radar that will lead to other opportunities. So don't be too like, what is it, that immediate, like I'm not seeing the immediate payoff. There are payoffs, I promise you, if you know how to cultivate and really amplify the impact of you being a guest on other people's podcasts and shows. Okay. So just learn the bigger strategy. Let me wrap up by saying that authority is in the eyes of the beholder, but you have the control to cultivate it and activate it. And, you know, look, if this is bringing up some stuff for you where you're bumping up against, like, I don't need to be authority, or who wants to be an authority? That's like too much responsibility. Or maybe you've got some limiting beliefs or some kind of conflicting feelings about what it means to be an authority. What I want you to recognize is that those kind of negative energy, you know, those beliefs that are coming up that are blocking you are probably playing out in your marketing overall, in your ability to be visible and in front of the people who need you and who will hire you and who will get you more exposure and opportunity. And many people have a normal progression through some fears and limiting beliefs to get to a place where they can embrace their expertise and be willing to amplify it as an authority. And I would love to help you with that if that's stuck for you, because you are way too amazing. You're way too good. You've put way too much energy and effort into this to be a best kept secret. Okay, I'm very interested and intrigued to hear your thoughts from today. And do you see yourself as an expert or an authority?